All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching or listening, however you're consuming this today. I really appreciate you. My name's Curtis Dixon, and if I don't know you, I can't wait to meet you. And if I do know you, then I probably can say I love you and I appreciate you. So thanks so much for listening to this. Today's topic is about change. And if you're listening to this or watching this and you want something more than you have right now, you want to build, you want to grow, you want to improve, then the first thing you need to do is recognize that it's about time to change. You're going to have to make a change. You might have to make a lot of changes. You might have to make small changes. You might have to make big changes. But either way, the first step to doing anything in the direction that you want to go is to make some change. And so how do we make change, right? How do you change anything in your life? How do you start that process? And what does it feel like and look like? That's what today's topics are going to be. So the first thing that I want to say, because I've been through this many times in my personal and professional life, is that in order to really get what you want to get, you're going to have to become the person that it would take to achieve that. So that's really hard. And the reason it's really hard is because the first step to getting what you want is to actually be or try to be the next version of yourself. And that's really hard because that takes time to work on yourself typically to get there, right? So it's kind of a paradox. It's kind of an oxymoron. But in order to get what you want, you're going to have to step into the role of who you need to be to achieve that. Okay. And just want you to think about that. That's your lens. That's your filter for listening or watching this today. So there are three ways to change, and they create different speeds. So if you do one, you change slowly. If you do another, you change a little bit quicker. If you do a third, you change really fast. But if you do all three around the same time, then you can change extremely quickly. And luckily, they build on each other sequentially, right? So if you do number one, then it helps you do number two. And if you do one and two, it helps you to do three. But at a minimum, the first step to becoming that person you need to become, to step into that role you need to be in to achieve what you want to achieve, is step one. And step one is changing the way you think. And why you think is super important. There's lots of different ways to describe what changing your thinking will do to you. I like the most recent kind of scientific way to think about it. So you probably have heard the word paradigm, and a paradigm can simply be broken down into just thinking about it like this. It's just a bundle of beliefs in your mind. And in your mind, I literally mean your brain, scientifically in your brain. So your paradigms are just a bundle of beliefs in your brain. Now, how you got paradigms in the first place is all of the thoughts and experiences that you've had throughout your life have slowly over time like bundled together and created a paradigm around a certain subject or certain topic, or sets of topics or people or places or whatever. You just have these paradigms. And again, they're just bundles of thoughts literally in your brain. Now, here's the thing about those paradigms. They control most of your decisions and most of your opinions and feelings about things. And so most of your decisions and opinions and feelings about things control your actions. So what we don't always realize is that our subconscious mind that is operating off of the paradigms that we hold are actually determining our actions. And therefore, for most of us, our outcomes and our results in our life, right? So again, to make change in your life, the first thing we got to go to work on is your thinking and your beliefs. So I love to tell stories. I'm going to kick off with a little story. And it's about my son, Jackson, who is, of course, one of my three kids, one of my pride and joys in this world. And it's a May day, about a year ago. May's hot in South Texas, so it's starting to get hot. For about 3 or 4 days, my son Jackson, who lives and breathes for basketball, was preparing for tryouts for what's called in Texas a club level basketball team, which means they play in a lot of tournaments. You pay a lot of money every month for them to participate. They take it really seriously. They have professional coaches. They have places to practice and play. And so that's what a club level basketball team is. So Jackson had been playing what I'd call a developmental recreational basketball for a lot of years now. And this was time for his club tryouts. So he was super excited. And he was also probably a little bit nervous. And as a daddy and his coach, I was super excited and also a little bit nervous. And so he's waiting all day. He's at school. I'm at work. And we meet up after school, after work time. And unfortunately, I just got a text message a couple of hours before that says, we can't have tryouts tonight. A pipe has burst in the school. So I'm talking to Jackson after school and I let him know, hey man, I'm so sorry. Pipe burst in the school and we can't go to the tryouts. So he's disappointed, devastated, in fact. And I think to go on with my work day since we don't have tryouts anymore. But instead, he sees a neighbor and his dad, so neighbor boy and his dad, are outside playing basketball on their driveway court. And so my son Jackson immediately says, Dad, since I don't have tryouts tonight, can we go play basketball against my friend and his dad outside on their court? And I love playing basketball. I never want to turn down a good game of basketball. However, we live, in a cul-de-sac and the hill's kind of slanted, the cul-de-sac's kind of slanted. And just like most, driveways and streets, like everything's hard concrete and gravel out there. And I really didn't encourage my young son at the time to play like competitive basketball in our driveway and on our street. And, I grew up playing street basketball and I know and remember like that's where a lot of injuries came from, was playing outside street basketball. But anyways, he says, please, Dad, please, let's go out and play some basketball. So I didn't really want to play and I didn't really think we should be playing competitively. So what I did was I went to go put on some sandals instead of tennis shoes, instead of basketball shoes. So we could go out there so that I would be restricting myself to playing, at a speed that you could play in sandals. And I didn't really want to play too full speed. So reluctantly, I go out there and we decide to play. And my son is not ready to play half speed. He's ready to play full speed. And his friend is a couple grades bigger than him and about 50 pounds heavier than him and a handful of inches taller than him. And his dad's out there in work clothes, because he just got home from work playing basketball with his son. And I'm in basketball clothes, but sandals. And my son is in full gear. He's got his basketball shoes on. He's got his ankle braces on. He's ready to play basketball. And so is the older kid. So we get in this game and Jackson, my son, is on fire. He's shooting and scoring. He's playing full speed. So is the other kid. And I'm trying to miss shots, but I was just, hot that day and I'm making a couple shots. So we start winning by a lot. And I didn't want to play competitively. I wasn't there to compete, but my son was, and so was his son. And so they're competing, going pretty hard against each other. And the dads are sort of just falling back and watching them. And a play happened where someone shot the ball and the ball hit the rim pretty hard and it boinged off the rim and both boys took off chasing it. And my son, the smaller one, got in front of his man and reached his hands out behind him, which is called a box out. And he attempted to box the kid out, but the kid is 2 years older than him and 50 pounds heavier than him, and they're running full speed. So he didn't box anything out. That kid fell on top of him. And in an instant, you just see and hear and crack. And my son just lets it out, bursts out screaming. And every parent on here, everybody who's ever broken a bone already knows the rest of the story. But my son immediately popped up, crying, tears in his eyes, holding his wrist. And he's like, I broke it. And we just start walking home. And the dad and the son are feeling terrible. And, we just keep walking home. And my wife is across the street and she sees what's happened. So she comes running and he's holding it and he just knows it's broken. And he's saying it's broken. And my wife is, let me see. And we look at it and he has no strength and it's limp and it looks broken. So we know or think it's probably broken, but we're not sure. We're not doctors. So we go inside and we say, well, maybe it'll just be hurt. Give it a minute. Let's see if you can get your feeling back, if you can move it. It could just be a sprain or something. But he just fell in the concrete under a 50-pound heavier than him kid. So it's probably broken. And we go inside and it's been a minute and he takes his hand off and we say, okay, well, we've got to go to the emergency room, or in this case, I think we went to the urgent care, and we've got to go get x-rays. We've got to go check on this thing and make sure if it's broken, we start the healing process ASAP, right? So we head to the urgent care and sure enough, it's broken. And immediately, without hesitation, without question, after we had made the decision to go to the urgent care and get x-rays, and the doctor saw the x-rays, they immediately put a cast on it, said he had to have a cast. And they sent us to the orthopedic surgeon for the next day to get a better cast. And they just started the process of healing, right? Because we went to a doctor and they know the process and they told us how to heal. And we went to the other doctor and they put it in the cast. And then 8 weeks later, maybe 10, his bones had healed and he was back stronger than ever, right? And the reason I tell that story is because almost everybody can relate to that very simple, practical process. You break a bone, you go to the doctor, they put it in a cast, it's healed, the bone's back and stronger than ever. But here's the thing that we don't do very often, emotionally, psychologically, is something might break in us mentally, right? We might go through a bad experience. We might go through a bad relationship. We might have a bad period on our business. We might go through a bad financial time. And that is the perfect time for change, right? That is the perfect time because something broke. But rarely do we actually acknowledge that in our mind because our paradigms, our mindset, our thinking, our beliefs is you take care of physical injuries, but emotional and mental injuries you ignore and you don't do anything about. So that is one of the first challenges to changing your thinking is identifying what's broken, identifying what you're feeling hurt about, identifying what thinking, what paradigms have gotten you to this point, this stage in your personal life, in your career, in your business, in your relationships, and identify where it's broken, so that you can start the healing process. And until you identify what's broken, you can't really go talk to anybody like the doctor to help with the healing process. And as soon as you identify what's broken and you start talking about it, and you start talking about it regularly with people, and these people luckily don't even have to be real doctors. Ideally, if you can get a therapist or something, I'm telling you, that's awesome. But in lieu of that, you've got friends, you've got family, you've got your business coaches, your colleagues, even sometimes your customers and your clients, if you develop a great relationship with them, being honest about areas where you're broken and you need to heal is very powerful. If you have, a faith organization or whatever it may be. But again, that's like step one to changing your thinking is identifying where you're broken. Or I guess it's one part or option of how to change your thinking, identifying where you're broken and starting the healing process. And again, the reason you can't change your mind and the reason this makes change slowly, the reason you can't do it super quickly is because that's a hard process. That requires a lot of reflection, looking inside and just kind of analyzing, where you're broken and what hurts and what you feel and what you think. And that's really hard. But if you can identify that broken paradigm, or you can identify again, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where your thinking is broken, then you can start to heal. And that shifts your thinking. You change your paradigm. So I've been through that before. I know what it's like. And I can tell you it's extremely powerful when you identify the broken thoughts in your mind, the broken paradigms, and you start the healing process, your thinking changes automatically. It just does. Here's another way to change your thinking. Another, challenge or trap or area where people's thinking can lead them astray and not give them the results that they want. And that's in your self-image. Not thinking you're good enough in a certain area. Maybe if we're talking about your sales business, not thinking you're good enough on the phones, not thinking you're good enough out in public, not thinking you're good enough at taking listings, not thinking you're good enough at servicing certain types of buyers or certain price ranges or certain personality types, or just not thinking you're good enough at organization or at marketing or whatever it is. And just giving yourself a break. Like everyone thinks they're not good enough. Everyone in some area and in some point in time. So you've got to give yourself a break and stop thinking that. Stop thinking you're not good enough. Just change your thinking. I am good enough. I got here. I can get there. I'm starting now. I'll keep going and I'll persist. You've got to reflect back and convince yourself you're good enough. At some point in your life, as a kid, as a spouse, as an entrepreneur, as a professional, whatever, you felt like you were good enough. I deserve this job. I deserve this promotion. I can start this company. I can earn that business. I can sell 40 houses. At some point you believed it. And then you hit that point where you didn't believe it anymore. You didn't believe you could go to the next level. So you just have to reconnect with that confidence, with that belief that you had in the beginning that you could do it in the first place, and boom, instantly shift your thinking. Now again, change your thinking, make change in your life, period. That simple. Not super fast, but the easiest and starting point to everything. Number 3 And this one, to me personally, is one of the hardest. I'm pretty good at 1 and 2, pretty good at finding what's broken and letting it heal, working to heal. I'm pretty good at my self-image and changing it and adjusting it as necessary to achieve what I want to achieve in my life. But this one's the hardest for me, and possibly hardest for a lot of people. It's letting go of the past. What you don't know is the image that you have of yourself tends to come from your past experiences and your past thoughts. You think what you were is now what you are. That's not true. What you were is what got you to where you are today in the present. But now in the present, what you think will get you to where you're going. And that's a super important concept to grasp. In the present, what you think will get you to where you're going. So if you're still thinking the way you thought in the past that got you to this level, then that thinking will not get you to the next level. That thinking will not continue to make change in your life. So if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to achieve, if you're ready to make change in your life, start by changing your thinking, attack one of the 3 areas, identify your broken beliefs and paradigms, adjust your self-image, or let go of the past, and think for the present to create the future. So that's number 1 in how to change your life. Sequence step number 1 is change your thinking. We're going to get in the next videos and audio to number 2 and number 3. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're listening on the pod, come check out the next pod. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Love for you to check out the videos. And if you're in one of my groups, thank you for listening. Can't wait to see you on the next call. Have a great day.